Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Escondido City Council. Please rise for a moment of reflection and remain standing for the flag salute.
Yes, please join me in a moment of reflection. We come together tonight to say thank you. Thank you for the privilege, the blessing, the honor it is to serve here in the city of Escondido. We come together tonight as a diverse community, a community of backgrounds, different beliefs, different presence, and different futures, yet one common goal, that is the betterment of this city. We come together tonight to seek guidance, wisdom, and discernment during deliberations that transpire this evening. And in doing so, we lift up Councilmember Garcia, Councilmember Morosco, Councilmember Martinez, Deputy Mayor Garcia, and Mayor White. May they be granted peace and wisdom as they lead our city into a bright and prosperous future. Amen.
Let us please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this meeting is called to order. Councilmember Morosco. Councilman Garcia.
Present.
Councilmember Martinez.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Garcia.
Here.
And I, Mayor White, am here. We'll move on to our proclamations, and the first up is Fire Prevention Awareness Week, and anybody who's here to participate in that can join me up at the small dais there. You guys can join us over here too if you want. You don't have to be all the way over there. Awesome. Before I issue the proclamation, I wanted to say thank you to the Escondido Fire Department. Fire prevention is some of the most important work that they do, and everyone benefits from that. So thank you again for that, and it is my honor to proclaim October 6th through 12th, 2024 as Fire Prevention Awareness Week. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. This year's Fire Prevention Week campaign, titled Smoke Alarms, Make Them Work for You, highlights the crucial role of functional smoke alarms in safeguarding our homes. Fire safety is a pressing public concern both locally and nationwide, with homes being the primary sites where people face the greatest risk. Alarmingly, about 60% of fire-related deaths occur in homes that either lack smoke alarms or have non-functional ones. It is essential to install smoke alarms in every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and every floor of the home. Additionally, smoke alarms should be tested monthly, and families should practice a home fire escape plan regularly. This marks our third year teaming up with the San Diego Regional Fire Foundation to hold a home fire escape plan contest at 3 of our local schools. The students were asked to draw their home layout and show their fire escape plan, which includes 2 ways out of every room, smoke alarms, and the location of the meeting place outside. At this time, I'd like to invite the contest winners with me. Executive Director of the Fire Foundation, Joan Jones, was unavailable tonight due to a prior engagement, but on her behalf and on the behalf of the Escondido Fire Department, I would like to acknowledge them for their hard work and for recognizing the importance of a home fire escape plan and working smoke alarms in the home. The Escondido Fire Department urges all residents to ensure that their homes are equipped with working smoke alarms and to enhance safety and protect lives. Thank you.
You guys want to come down for a photo? You guys are in it too. Come over here. come on down, Lynn. Join me up here. Hello. We'll give everybody a second to file out, but while they do, I'll preface this with, I met Lynn shortly after the election, and we had a meeting for a little over an hour, I think, talking about you and your daughter and homelessness, and it was really a fantastic experience, and I appreciate all that you do for the community. It's an honor to be able to present you with this proclamation for Ashley's Hope Day, October 9th, 2024, which says, whereas Ashley's Hope was founded by Lynn Solorzano in 2022 in honor of her daughter Ashley, who passed away in February 2021 at age 25 after an 8-year battle with homelessness and mental health issues. And whereas Ashley Hope provides clothing to men and women experiencing homelessness in San Diego County, and whereas Ashley's Hope rents a 300 square foot warehouse in Escondido where all donations are sorted, folded, and stored until they are donated to local organizations who serve the homeless directly. And whereas Ashley's Hope believes unsheltered individuals deserve to be treated with kindness, dignity, and respect because each one of them matters. Now, therefore, I, Dana M. White, Mayor of the City of Escondido, do hereby proclaim October 9th, 2024 as Ashley's Hope Day in Escondido. Thank you. This is for you. And your three.
I think I'm just gonna stare at this for a while. So beautiful. To add to what Dane said, I just wanted to take a couple of very short minutes. My speech is a lot shorter than Dane's, but I just wanted to just say a couple words. Ashley's Hope provides clothing to the homeless and those in need in honor of my daughter, Ashley. Thank you for recognizing Ashley's Hope today and for your ongoing support in helping us help our community. Ashley's Hope will be operating for 3 years in January. I'm very proud of that. And I'm just so excited and proud and blessed to have accomplished what we've accomplished this far. Look for more exciting things to come. I don't know what else to say. I'm just really grateful, and I am happy to be able to help all the people in Escondido and in San Diego. We cover all of San Diego to reach out and help those individuals that need help. And that's it. Thank you very much. I know Ashley is looking down going, yeah, Mom, thanks. I love it.
Sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Should we have all my people come down?
Whoever you want to be in it, can be in it.
Yeah, because we want to.
Whoever wants to be in this picture can come on down.
Guys, come on.
And same with the city council.
Picture. One last picture.
Make sure you hold this in the picture.
Oh, okay. It's beautiful.
Moving on to presentations is the Nuisance Abatement Ordinances and Practice. I'll turn the time over to the City Attorney.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Mayor, council members, my name is Michael McGinnis, your city attorney. On August 28th, Deputy Mayor Garcia had requested a future agenda item in order to talk about our nuisance and code enforcement procedures. Please allow this presentation to cover that. Hopefully I've captured what the Deputy Mayor was looking for. I know this is a subject that many of you get lots of constituent emails and questions and comments on, so the hope here is that I provide you information to you and that the residents in the city know how the process is working through code and through my office. So this evening's presentation will cover the following issues. I will highlight the provisions of the Escondido Municipal Code, which govern the requirements of property owners in the care and maintenance of their properties. I will then cover the means and methods by which the city works to gain compliance with property owners in terms of their violations. Next, I will discuss some compliance and enforcement issues that we typically encounter in the entire process that I'm going to talk about. And last, I'll give you some information for the public to know if they encounter nuisance conditions, how can they report them, and what can they expect in terms of response from city forces. It should be noted at the outset that all violations of the municipal code are generally considered a nuisance. This rule of general applicability gives us some flexibility in the way we deal with various nuisance issues that we face and the levels and types of enforcement that were available to us to handle them. In 1985, the city adopted Ordinance number 85-44, which established the City of Escondido Property Maintenance Ordinance. That ordinance can be found in Section 6-480 through 506 of the code. The stated purpose of the ordinance was to emphasize the need for property maintenance and sanitation as nuisance conditions are injurious and inimical to public health, safety, and welfare. The code has been updated several times over the years. While tonight's presentation is focused on the code's provisions for nuisances arising generally from the maintenance of private property, there are many specific conditions called out in the code as a public nuisance, such as signs in the public right-of-way, unpermitted news racks in the right-of-way, abandoned service stations, maintenance of water wells, abandoned vehicles, advertising adjacent to sign-controlled freeways, fire hazards under the weed and rubbish abatement program. So it's throughout our code, but I'm going to be focusing tonight on the private property maintenance conditions and the creation of public nuisances in those. The complaint process for the public is the same, regardless of those very specific items I just mentioned. So if we have a nuisance condition, the public should be reporting it as I described near the end of the presentation. By code, the city's building official is designated as the enforcement officer. And in practice, this code is regularly enforced by both our building inspector and our code compliance officers. At times as well, we have assistance from Public Works, we have fire, we have police, and as well, my office will be involved usually towards the end of that process. This can be an all too familiar sight in our neighborhoods. So to start, the ordinance prohibits some very specific items to be maintained on private property, such as trash, junk, and debris, abandoned and discarded furniture, appliances, fixtures, and vehicle parts, trash cans, bins, and containers other than as allowed by the code, which requires that people bring them back into their home area and not just leave them in the street. Building materials and supplies when there's not an active building permit applicable to that property. Tarps, plastic sheeting, coverings, unless it's on a temporary basis. And again, we're looking for, if those are going to be in place, if there's an active construction permit or a homeowner needs for a very temporary need, those kinds of coverings. You can't use those to screen the public view of your backyard, so those can't be obstructions in that way. Abandoned, wrecked, dismantled, and inoperable vehicles, including motorhomes, trailers, and like. broken, deteriorated, and obscured illegible signs. So those are kind of the main property type things that you will often see. I know you pass them down, and we have discussions about those things, so you see a lot of that from your constituents. Building conditions are another common complaint that you see. Specific as to buildings on private property, the following are prohibited: abandoned, partially destroyed, or partially constructed and incomplete buildings; deteriorated buildings to the point where their exterior coverings are allowing sun and water penetration; broken windows, doors, attics, and vents; cracked, broken, defective exteriors, walls, and fences; defaced, including graffiti, building exteriors, walls, fences, driveways; unsecured and unlatched or lack of automatic self-closing devices for people with swimming pools. If you have a swimming pool, you know how that important is, so you don't have people from the outside getting entry into your backyard, so you have to have a self-closing device on your gate. Those are all nuisances. Of particular interest lately, some of the news that we got last week, standing water can also be a serious issue. Standing polluted water on property is prohibited. Polluted water is defined in the code to include water which contains bacterial growth, algae, remains of animals and insects, refuse and rubbish, or other foreign matters which may constitute unhealthy, unsafe, or unsightly conditions. And specifically, the code includes swimming pools and ponds, but really any other body of water which is abandoned, unattended, unfiltered, or otherwise maintaining this polluted water, as defined, is a violation of our code. Breeding places for mosquitoes are also specifically called out in the code as a public nuisance and may be abated under a different section of the code in section 17-16 through 17. Overgrown vegetation is also a common issue we see and you hear about. When it comes to vegetation on property, the code calls out specific conditions which are deemed public nuisances, such as weeds, disease, decayed, overgrown, hazardous vegetation, vegetation that impacts sidewalks, alleys, and rights-of-way. So if you have trees over these rights-of-ways, you have to have 8 feet of clearance above the surface of that street or sidewalk. Roots causing public and private sidewalks, streets, or alleys to crack, buckle, or rise. Barren patches of dirt, holes, and ruts in landscaped areas within the public view. Deteriorated or unsightly landscape elements, including natural and structural features as described. Excess irrigation resulting in overflow from the property. And in addition to just the issue of simple property maintenance, my office sees these conditions as certainly potential risks to the city. So if you have cracked sidewalks, if you have obstructed roadway signs, we're going to get a claim if there's an accident associated with those, and that raises our risk profile. So not only do you have aesthetic issues here, and you have other conditions that could be problematic, could be rat infestation, but we also have our own city interest with respect to these kinds of conditions. The mere existence of these conditions under our code will constitute a prohibited public nuisance, and the appropriate recipient for the warnings, notices of violation, or other compliance and enforcement requests will include the record owner of the property, their tenant, occupants, and others having direct control and possession of the property. So we've tried in our code to be as broad as possible with respect to those persons who are going to be responsible for those conditions that we're dealing with. The city's authorities for these conditions are well-founded and arises under our ordinances and under the California Constitution's police power. Additionally, it is important to note that we do not have a single enforcement mechanism under the code. Instead, we have multiple means of attacking these problems through administrative sites, criminal enforcement, and civil lawsuits. And I'll discuss that a little bit more at the end. The existing notice of violation process includes several steps and reflects an effort, at least at the beginning, to obtain voluntary compliance, not the imposition of monetary fines and court action. So to start, when a case is going to be opened, the matter may come in to our code enforcement or code compliance group from different sources. It might be internally from the code officers themselves, or it may be a referral from the public, it might be a referral from staff, or from the council. Once an examination is made is to determine whether or not there's an existing file for that property, and whether or not that property is actually in our jurisdiction and therefore subject to our code. Assuming it's in our jurisdiction, a file is created in our city work system and an officer is assigned. The property is then inspected. If there's a violation, from the first notice of violation on, the property owner has control to end the code inspection process by simply complying with the issued notice of violation. As for a period of compliance, the typical non-emergency condition can be 60, 90, and in some circumstances, 120 days. However, imminent health and safety, welfare issues can be as quick as 24 hours. So it's really dependent upon the nature of that condition. The notice of violation must include some very basic information, including a statement of the nuisance finding, a description of the condition, in order to abate within a reasonable time, and that time is included. A requirement that there's a legal disposal of the material involved in the nuisance condition. So if you're clearing off a roadway or, housing area, you need to make sure that anything that's taken, any debris taken from that, needs to be legally disposed of. There needs to be a statement advising that if the work is not commenced, the building official may cause the work to be done and bill the abatement cost back against the property. There's an appeal process that's provided, and notice and order. It can be recorded against the property, but hopefully we never get to that point. After the compliance deadline has passed, and if there's no compliance, a citation is issued with a deadline. Thereafter, a second citation is issued, and reinspection fees can be assessed. With a continued violation, a third citation is issued, reinspection fees are assessed, and the property can be certified as a public nuisance with a recording in the county recorder's office. And this is the time period that my office will normally be brought in to help advise the departments and then take legal action if required. If the property owner undertakes the abatement effort, extensions can be granted to complete the work. And what code is looking for, or what my office is always looking for, is timeliness, progress, and good faith efforts. Other circumstances may be considered in granting extensions, such as, is the property owner and tenant a senior, like somebody who's elderly, economic limitations, health issues, lack of family support system. So we're constantly trying to work with the property owner, provided there's this progress and effort. If the property owner believes that the notice of violation is erroneously issued, it can file an appeal, and that goes to the Planning Commission. There are timeframes that must be met, and there are other requirements to satisfying the appeal process, including it's got to be in writing, they have to pay the proper fee, there has to be a statement of appeal grounds included. The appeal stays any proceedings being undertaken by the city, provided that the appeal is timely and satisfies the code, except in the case of an immediate dangerous condition, and the city manager can resolve those appeals on his own and expeditiously. If the appeal goes to the Planning Commission, the code requires that it go on to the next meeting agenda, and thereafter that decision can be appealed to the City Council. It is intended to be a reasonably expeditious process. And I was looking back, and I don't recall any time since I've been here in the seat, in the 7 years I've been here, that we've had an appeal from the Planning Commission on a nuisance condition appeal. So I think that's a fairly rare circumstance. Under the code, the city can use its own forces to conduct an abatement, or it can hire a contractor to do so. The decision on which course to take will be dependent on the amount and nature of the work to be performed and the availability and capability of city crews to perform it. As part of our nuisance abatement lawsuits, we at times will ask for the court to appoint a receiver in order to take control of the abatement process. So that receiver then becomes an officer of the court, and then will be reporting to the court on progress made, contractors hired, a report on costs incurred, and it can be Very difficult to get those. It's actually very beneficial for us to be able to secure the appointment of a receiver in an abatement case, but the judges are hesitant to do that. They will give property owners a lot of time in which to try to comply, and that delay, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is very frustrating to us. It can be very frustrating to neighbors. So the court receivership process can be great because it takes that burden of cost and effort from us, but it nevertheless it can be difficult for the property owner if they're forced into a court-appointed receiver. In those cases where the nuisance is an imminent danger to persons or property, there's an expedited process where the abatement can be required immediately or within 24 hours of an event or notice of condition. And again, the city can self-perform this work or hire it out, and then it can recover that money from the property owner. My office can file a civil action to abate. Typically, we'll seek a judgment against the owner of the property or other property defendant, and that judgment will then be used in order to secure the recovery of costs and damages to the extent we're hiring contractors to do work. That receiver appointment, as I just mentioned, if we can get that, that's where we would like to go. It's very difficult to get that. We can file a criminal complaint in cases where every other effort at compliance has been unsuccessful, and those cases can be charged as a misdemeanor or as an infraction. With a misdemeanor, the defendant is able to get a jury trial, has a right to counsel. That person faces jail and faces a higher fine. So those are quite frankly aggravated circumstances where we're going to file a misdemeanor case against somebody. The infractions, on the other hand, are usually fine related. So the charging decision from my office will be really dependent on a lot of factors, making sure that we have a clear violation, we've had efforts, and then there's a complete lack of compliance and some of the other circumstances I've talked about tonight. And as a reminder, every single day that property is in violation of our code is a separate offense. So it can be very expensive when you look at the fines associated with these violations. The best methods for communication about nuisance conditions seen by the public include submit a request for investigation form. There's actually a hard copy form that somebody can file with our code, folks. The city website itself has, if you go onto our opening page at the bottom, there's a button for report it. Every one of us, of course, should have reported on our phones, our apps, and that's a terrific way to make sure you're contemporaneously filing these things and letting us know about them. And then there's a hotline number, which is there, 760-839-4650. So if somebody does then report, what's the response look like? And there's really 4 levels of response priorities that code is working from. Priority 1 is an imminent threat to life or property and public safety that receives an immediate response. Number 2, which is very close priorities, should be addressed as soon as practicable and within 24 hours, and include health and safety matters needing expedited responses, which may include such things as uninhabitable living conditions, hazardous material spills, partially collapsed buildings where nobody's inside, of course. Those would be our number 2 priorities. Number 3 priority calls are usually addressed in 3 working days and are hazards which are not considered imminent dangers, but may include such things as illegal occupancy of garages or buildings, plumbing and electrical violations, unpermitted grading, homeless encampments referred by the COPS unit. Priority 4 include other minor code violations such as animal cases, noise complaints, and illegal vendors. As I noted, the ability and speed of a response to these kinds of code notices will be dependent on the nature of the violation, our available resources to do that, and are there existing priority matters in the queue already. And there are other times where we're dependent on another party or agency to do something in order to completely abate a nuisance. The perfect example of that is SDG&E. When we're trying to abate, we had this recently, where we're trying to raise a building and it had active electrical or gas service in it. We had to have SDG come in, and now we're in a waiting we're in a holding pattern waiting for SDG&E to come in. So again, I understand where residents and businesses are saying, why isn't anything happening? These are some of the explanations why that is. And the last cause for delay in getting a final resolution can be from the court when we file civil nuisance abatement cases. And I can see this from personal experience where once you start that legal process, you're now on a court docket, and the court is going to handle your matter as expeditiously as it can in that court, but it doesn't move as quickly as possible. We had an abatement case where we had a property that had squatters in it. This is a couple of years ago. Filed our nuisance abatement case. Delays after delays. We tried to get the court to move the matter along quicker. And there was a point in time where the residents came down to court. And so it's one thing for me to be talking to the court, talking about the problems that we're having with this property and its impact on the neighborhood. It's another thing to have the neighbors there. And we had neighbors coming into the back and the gallery, and now the judge is looking at the neighbors and understanding probably a greater impact that's happening than maybe I can relay. So I know that's frustrating for neighbors when they're not seeing quicker results. So I hope that's given you a fairly good overview of what we do in both code and the city attorney's office when it comes to these matters. It's great if we had more resources. That's always, you're going to hear that all day long, and I don't mean to be pushing any farther than what you've already heard from us, but when it comes to code in my office in particular, I only have one code prosecutor, and that code prosecutor is split time between code and other matters like public records and so forth. So anything we can do to help that would be helpful to your constituents. So that closes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say, for the record, the Report It app is an excellent tool to report any issue you have in the city. So if you haven't already downloaded it, please do so. Please use it frequently. You can do your part to make the city a better place just by reporting potholes or encampments or anything like that. So that concludes my remarks. Yeah, graffiti, really anything.
Do you want to?
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. This is something that I think a lot of business owners and residents, but especially business owners, they've been asking for. I think this is especially important given that a lot of times the biggest thing that I've heard is that business owners or, again, residents don't really know where to go or what the process is. And I think laying it out like this is really beneficial to people who are looking for help and just don't really know where to start. So I appreciate it. This lays it out really neatly, and I think this is going to be put to use. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the presentation. And this is distinctly different from our noise ordinance, and that's a whole different procedure, right? When there is a complaint, like I know there's a hotline number and there's a request for investigation form. You mentioned that there's like a hard copy. Where do people go for that hard copy? Is it a bilingual form? And then who do they turn it into and how do they turn it in?
It is a bilingual form. You can bring it into the front counter.
Where do they access the form?
I'm not sure if that's online though, but I will get back to you and I'll make sure. Do you know, Chris?
I believe the form is available online, but then it can be submitted hard copy at the code compliance counter at City Hall.
Code compliance, got it. Okay, thank you. And then the hotline, that is our hotline to code enforcement?
It is.
Code compliance, excuse me.
It is.
We've changed the term of that department. And then I know with with noise ordinance issues, and I know that's a separate a separate issue, but there is no anonymity with those kind of complaints. They have to say who filed the complaint. For these types of complaints, is there anonymity with this, or do you have to disclose who submitted the complaint?
I actually have a copy of that form.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think I don't believe that's required. I don't believe it's required that you identify your name.
Okay.
And that would certainly be true on the reported app. I mean, if you're
Right.
identifying a location, that's what we need. We need the information of the property. It is one thing, we are concerned about warring neighbors. And that is of course, you could have a neighbor reporting something that is a code violation. But when they're using it and they're drawing our staff in, to what is really nothing more than a fight between neighbors. We try to not be a part of that as much as possible. Those things that are imminent, safety, public health issues, we're just going to deal with those. But those things about a fence falling down, those are pretty far down in the priority list. So anonymity, I think you can submit anything you want, but.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious because I know with noise issues, that was deterring people from reporting issues because they didn't want to have problems with their neighbors and they didn't want to get retaliated against. So I just wanted to make that distinction on this, and I do appreciate how you've laid it out in the presentation. I've made note of the hotline in case people don't have, a smartphone. I know one of my parents has a flip phone still, so giving people alternative ways to communicate with the city, and I appreciate the different levels of priority based on our limited capacity and resources, and then also the prioritizing more, health and safety ones. So I appreciate the information, and I will share it with the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move on to the consent calendar, items 1 through 5.
Mr. Mayor, would you have oral
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
First,
Sorry, non-agenda public comments.
Stephen Wheeler.
My name is Stephen Anthony Wheeler. I'm a resident of Escondido. Council members, it's been 15 years since I last spoke to this body. I thank you again for giving me that privilege tonight. Today, I re-raise a recommendation I first presented to this body 15 years ago. The subject is a potential city revenue benefit from repealing our current cannabis retail establishment prohibition within our city limits. As a reference, I asked this body to look closely at our neighbor Vista, who in 2018 was facing a budget deficit, and how we might learn from their actions and their experience. In 2018, Vista was the first North County city to issue recreational cannabis business licenses for retail stores. At that time, they also introduced a 7% city tax on cannabis business gross revenue, all allocated to the general fund. Not knowing what to expect at that time in 2018, they evaluated it 3 years later in 2021, and a $7 million per year revenue was realized. Not knowing what to expect in those early days of retail stores, they found in 2021 that the unanticipated revenue size was such that just 3 years into it, they found cause to limit the tax to $4 million allocatable to the general fund, with any excess beyond $4 million would be relegated to include programs that provide things such as youth scholarships and public works. My view is we are trying to navigate a 21st century budget deficit balancing strategy. I ask this body to consider that let us join the 21st century. I suggest we're well behind the curve. I see I'm running out of time. It was 15 years ago that during this body's deliberation of the proposed cannabis moratorium, one council member stated similar to, let them go to Vista. And you know what? They and we did. I am a retired biopharmaceutical.
Hey, Stephen, your time has expired. However, if you leave your contact information with the city clerk, I'll contact you. We've requested the city manager come back with a work plan to place cannabis on the ballot, and I'm happy to give you that information. So please leave your contact with the city clerk.
I think you have it there, right?
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the time.
Next speaker is Corey Schumacher.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor White, Deputy Mayor Garcia, and council members. My name is Corey Schumacher, and I'm here on behalf of 3,700 union electricians and power professionals of IBEW 569, over 250 of which live right here in Escondido. I stand before you to support the 3 decades of community service provided by the California Center for the Arts Escondido Foundation. Through cultural programs, performances, and arts education, this foundation has made the arts accessible to everyone. The foundation has warmly hosted over 10.5 million visitors and brought arts education to the more than 100,000 students. The foundation has a proven track record of serving the community and is invested in the cultural future of Escondido. Replacing the foundation with a private, profit-oriented organization could prioritize private interests over community needs, and that would detract from CCAE's historical community-focused arts programming that is a result of the care and dedication of the foundation. We join the community in supporting the CCAE Foundation to ensure it continues managing the center, preserving its essential role in Escondido's cultural and educational heart. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nate Woods.
Good evening, Mayor White and esteemed council members. My name is Nate Woods, and I was born and raised in Escondido. I'm here to speak on the California Center for the Arts RFP process. As a child, I first performed at the Center for the Arts in a production of Annie on the Center Theater stage. I played Rooster, for any who are familiar, and was actually laughed off stage for forgetting my lines one night. Later, I performed at the Center all throughout high school with Center Stage Productions and the San Pasqual High School Choir. Suffice to say, my very roots are not only with this city, but also with the Center for the Arts and with many of the community arts organizations in our fine city. In 2015, I was hired as a stage technician intern at the Arts Center. In the 10 months I spent in that internship, on top of receiving one of the best and most comprehensive training programs for our industry in this county, I learned 2 of the most important lessons that, at the time, turned my life around. That I could finally return the favor to the community and arts organizations that raised me, but that I could actually make a living working in the arts that I had always loved. Now, nearly 10 years later, I have worked my way up to become the head carpenter and union steward for the venue. I have proudly guided and worked alongside multiple generations of interns and workers at this venue, continuing to uphold its status as one of the most potent training and production facilities, not just for Escondido, but for all of San Diego County. I come to you this evening as a deeply concerned member of this great community. In all of the communications and documents I have read regarding the RFP, I have seen a frankly disturbing lack of urgency and care for the livelihoods of the many fine people working for the Center for the Arts. I strongly urge this council to consider their duty to the citizens of Escondido, its community, and its heritage before choosing to upend the livelihoods of people like myself and those who work beside me. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amber Steinbeck.
Good evening, Mayor White and council members. My name is Amber Steinbeck, and I've lived in Escondido my entire life. I am here to address the request for proposals for management rights at the California Center for the Arts and what that will mean for both the community of Escondido and the people currently employed in that center. I am currently employed as the head electrician of both theaters and our studio space and have worked there off and on for 13 years. I also spent many of my teenage years rehearsing in the studios on the campus and performing on the small Center Theater stage, as well as attending many of the free community events that are put on throughout the year by the foundation that bring together our community. Apologies. While performing in shows, I learned about technical theater, which led me to apply for the internship, where I gained friends, mentors, a partner, and more work skills than I can count, which include a highly esteemed certification in theatrical electrician. I have also watched many people in this community grow up, from the children dancing on stage who are now adults working professionally, to the many people that have gone through our internship or come up through our union that I have personally taught and mentored. I implore the City Council to consider the jobs and the community that could be lost due to the Center for the Arts being managed for profit and not for the people of Escondido. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nate Herenstein.
Honorable Mayor White, Deputy Mayor Garcia, council members. I am Nathan Herenstein. I am the Director of Education for the San Diego Theatrical Training Corporation, the sponsor of the only federally recognized apprenticeship for our stagecraft that is union endorsed in the country. We will actually be state recognized very soon, and everything that I have done has come out of California Center for the Arts. We have a program that is second to none in this country, and I want to make sure that this body understands what has come out of California Center for the Arts. We have heads of department and stewards and leaders in the Civic Theater downtown, the Balboa Theater downtown, the La Jolla Playhouse, the Old Globe Theater. Every single event that happens in the convention center and many of the events that happen in every single hotel downtown have leadership that has been trained in the building right across the way. These individuals learned key and critical leadership skills and were given the space to grow and to do what they needed to do to mature in this industry. They were provided support and were provided with a leadership and mentorship process that allowed them to succeed. Removing this key element from San Diego County significantly damages the entire entertainment industry in San Diego County. It harms not only Escondido, but it harms the entire county at a critical point in our history, in our industry, where we are moving forward and actually starting to gain traction and succeed. I urge this body to make sure that no matter what happens, that the men and women that have worked in that building and that will continue to work in that building and that leaders continue to come out of this facility. You have something that you should be insanely proud of. And I just want to make sure that you understand that. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Eileen Rodriguez.
Hi there, good evening. I actually had started as an intern back in 2012 at the Center for the Arts. It actually kind of saved my life. And as a teenager, not knowing what I was going to do, ended up making my career. I'm currently the master electrician at the San Diego Sports Arena, and it's all because of this place. So it's not a job, it's a passion. We love what we do, and it's going to help more of those kids that don't know what they're going to do in high school, where they don't know where they're going to go. This place is it. It's helped a lot of people, and we're also serving so many people. It's great to see patrons come out excited that they got to see a show, not just concerts, but theater, comedy, ballet, symphony, all of it. So just want you to see from the other side of how it saves not only us, but helps the community. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amanda Cohen.
Mayor White and council members, my name is Amanda Cohen, and I'm a resident of Escondido, and I've lived in San Diego County most of my life. I stand before you to speak about the request for proposals for new operations management at the Center for the Arts. This situation raises serious concerns as it endangers American jobs here in Escondido and North County. I've worked here for over 16 years as a stagehand and through the union. CCAE, as it is incredibly important, both to the city as a corner mark of Escondido and to me as the place where I got my start. Fresh out of high school, I joined its internship program, and it made me who I am today. I learned to stand up for myself and others and our rights, along with valuable experiences and training and a wide variety of skills: audio, video, lighting, carpentry, I got my OSHA certification, my scissor and boom lift certifications, and at least half a dozen others. I have a full-time job with training, benefits, and a family who stands with me in times of need. I am proud to work with these people who prioritize the safety and professionalism that this place has taught me is so important. The people here truly care about the center, the arts, and the people of this city and each other in a way that I have experienced nowhere else. This place and the people running it have provided me with more than just a job. They have provided me my future, my family, and my understanding of how important it is to care for my fellow workers and their rights. They've provided me an intrinsic belief in working hard and being honest in what you do regardless of the situation. And they provided me a place to be the best version of myself. And it would be a serious blow to deny that experience to future employees and the many things they will accomplish as long as the center, which has stood here for over 30 years, continues to operate as is. So I call on you, Mayor White, to please prioritize these residents, these jobs, and these people over profit. Please consider worker protections and ensure the safety of these jobs and the people who need them. Thank you.
Our next speaker is John Barnett. Oh, he submitted a comment or speak online, so he might not be here. Not a problem. Jeff Bright.
Good evening, Mayor White, council members. My name is Jeff Bright, and I currently live in North County. My family and I have been proud residents of North County and Escondido for the last 41 years. I'm here today to address requests for the RFP for new operations and management at California Center for the Arts, and the RFP raises serious concerns and threatens American jobs, particularly those in Escondido, North County, San Diego, as echoed by members of my union here. I got my start in this industry at CCAE, and I was actually the first graduating intern of the program in 1999, as well as a graduate at Miracosta College. Many of us transitioned from Miracosta College into roles, leading roles in CCAE, straight out of their audio program over there. I was one of 5 in a row, I think, that came out of the program at Miracosta straight into California Center for the Arts. I became the head audio engineer shortly after completing the intern program and graduating Miracosta College. It has served me very well in my career and afforded me opportunities I would not have had otherwise. Public institutions prioritize serving the community, not boosting profits of outside corporations, and transparency and inclusivity are paramount in today's organizations. CCA is a cornerstone of Escondido. It has been for 30 years. And through its membership program and IATSE 122, I have gained valuable experiences such as training in audio, video, lighting. I got my OSHA certifications through there, and the industry-specific certifications and many valuable skills in the workforce that I currently reside in. I am proud to work with the highest standards of safety and professionalism. For over 30 years, CCA has been a cultural landmark, and now I call on you, Mayor White, to add protections and save our local jobs. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Greg Suisse.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Greg Swizdrazal. I am the president of IATSE Local 122. I represent 500 plus members that work within San Diego and the California Center for the Arts Escondido, some of which are here. Local 122 has had a long-standing presence and relationship with the center for over 30 years, long before I moved here back in my early 20s. I've been a member of IATSE Local 122 for 20 years and got my start at the center, as most of our membership, and as you've heard, have. The CCAE is a place where people new to the industry have an opportunity to gain on-the-job training they would otherwise have a difficult time getting anywhere else. The CCAE has been a long, reliable training venue for some of our best and brightest stagehands and several of our local officers like myself. We have managed to take the leadership and training that has been established there and transform that into the first ever federally recognized apprenticeship for our industry across the entire country. The city of Escondido should be proud to host to be one of the first signatories to that apprenticeship program. The training and opportunities provided at the CCAE has guided our ability to provide stagehands with the skills they need in order to provide safe, reliable, world-class professional stagehands with good paying jobs and benefits such as healthcare and pensions. I'm here today to address the request for proposals, the RFP, for a new operations management company at the Center for the Arts. This RFP and the process in which it's being conducted raises serious concerns for our workers in that facility and future stage professionals. Public institutions should prioritize serving the community. The best way, in my opinion, to achieve that is to have a transparent process that is open to the public and provides a mechanism for the community to voice their concerns about all entities that are being considered. I strongly urge this body to protect the interests of its constituents with a transparent process that will ensure that the CCAE and the City of Escondido upholds its values and long-established commitments within the community it serves, and that you take decisive leadership in this matter by ensuring worker protections that preserve these valuable living wage jobs for local workers within the jurisdiction of Escondido and the Center for the Arts. I ask that you consider these recommendations and make your decisions with the community and not dictate your decisions to the community. Thank you for your time.
No further public comment.
All right, thank you, everybody. Now we'll move on to the consent calendar. Items 1 through 5 are on consent. I'll go ahead and move to approve the consent calendar as is and ask for a second. Perfect. Please open the voting.
Voting is open. Motion approved 5-0.
We'll give everybody a second to file out. All right, item 6 is interim urgency ordinance prohibiting new commercial battery energy storage systems within the city of Escondido. Thanks, Veronica. Time's yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. My name is Veronica Morones. I'm our city planner, and I'm here this evening to present on item number 6 to you. Specifically, the action before you this evening is adoption of ordinance number 2024-12, which would result in approval of an interim ordinance prohibiting new commercial battery energy storage system facilities, also referred to as BESS, within the city of Escondido. This action would be an urgency measure, and adoption of ordinance number 2024-12 would be in compliance with Government Code Section 65858, which provides for this action subject to a 4/5 vote by this council. Before we discuss why this item is before the council this evening, just a bit of background on what a BESS is. A battery energy storage system is a facility that collects energy from the grid, stores it typically within batteries, and then discharges it to the grid at a later time, usually during peak demands for purposes of creating grid reliability. At this time, the number of commercial BESS facilities within the city's boundaries are unknown and would take further research to determine by staff. However, according to the California Energy Commission's Energy Storage System Survey, there are approximately 27 commercial facilities located within the 92025, 26, 27, and 29 zip codes. At the city level, there currently are no BESS-specific regulations pertaining to this land use. Instead, the city has historically found BESS facilities to be a similar use to those types of uses permitted within the general industrial zone, which permits for heavy industrial uses such as oil refineries, power plants, and transmission facilities. Pursuant to our current city regulations, a new commercial BESS facility would be processed through a staff-level administrative review if proposed on a parcel within the general industrial zone. The City Council adopted a resolution in August of this year expressing their position on best facilities in and around Escondido, which resolved the need for consideration of local and region-wide design guidelines, development standards, locational standards, and related controls. If the council adopts this urgency ordinance, there would be at least 2 proposals for commercial best facilities potentially impacted. The first is the commercial best facility at 555 North Tulip, which was approved by City Council in December of 2023 and has yet to move forward with any post-entitled permitting or construction. A second facility located at 1968 Don Lee is currently under review by the Development Services Department. These would be impacted in that they would be prohibited from receiving permits to move forward until cessation of this ordinance if adopted. The concerns surrounding best facilities entail public health and safety and economic development issues, specifically stemming from fire hazards associated with the batteries themselves. Most recently, the city experienced a fire at 571 Enterprise Street in early September that caused mandatory evacuations for the surrounding area and caused school closures. The city's current comprehensive economic development strategy, also known as CEDS, identified less than optimal industries within the city and general concerns regarding highest and best land use. Best facilities typically have lower on-site staffing and/or remote operations and are seen as long-term static land use. Both of these attributes are indicative of development that CEDS advises to move away from for the purposes of bolstering the city's economic development. All of this background and general concerns on best facilities brings us to the urgency ordinance at hand. The city may adopt an interim ordinance prohibiting a use as an urgency measure. The first step in this process is to adopt an interim urgency ordinance, which is what is before the council this evening, for a 45-day period. This 45-day period would effectively prohibit any planning use permit, building permit, business license, or any other entitlement for use from being approved or issued for the establishment, construction, or operation of a commercial best facility anywhere within the city. During this 45-day period, the city would work to identify measures to alleviate the conditions which led to the adoption of this urgency ordinance. Those are public health and safety concerns and economic development concerns, and determine whether to issue a written report by day 35 of the interim ordinance, in other words, 10 days prior to the 45 days being expired, in an effort to adopt an extension of the urgency ordinance. With that generally concludes staff's presentation on the adoption, on the ordinance before you this evening. I am available for questions. We also have additional staff present for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have public comments?
Yes, we do. First is Corey Schumacher.
Hello again. Corey Schumacher here. Loving coming to Escondido because your city hall is absolutely gorgeous with the Art Deco. I just love being here. Good evening again, Honorable Mayor White, Deputy Mayor Garcia, council members. Corey Schumacher here on behalf of the 3,700 union electricians and power professionals in San Diego and Imperial counties, over 250 of which live here in Escondido and vote here in Escondido. Today, I am here to talk to you about opposing the proposed urgency ordinance that prohibits new commercial battery energy storage systems. Not only will this have a chilling effect, as moratoriums do, which would further diminish your economic viability in the city, but it also doesn't take into consideration a pivot that you could do to actually address some of the issues that we're seeing with the battery energy storage facilities. We submitted a letter to you that digs into some of the issues around workforce standards, because installation and maintenance errors are often at the root of these fires that we're seeing. Fires that I should note are on battery energy storage facilities that were developed and permitted prior to 2018 and do not take into consideration the new laws in 2022 with the California Fire Protection Code and 2023 National Fire Protection Association codes, of which is discussed in this letter that we submitted. Rather than a prohibition on battery energy storage systems, you should have options before you to address workforce and workforce safety standards. Who builds and installs these matters? For example, in Otay Mesa, the battery energy storage fire that burned for 17 days, that was actually not installed or maintained by general electricians. Do you know that the most dangerous battery systems in the county are actually electric bikes and lithium ion that are thrown into garbage? This is not to downplay the risks, but to understand the context of what you're dealing with. Studies from UC Berkeley and the Contractor State Association Licensing Board all agree that C10 licensed contractors employing state-certified general electricians are the skilled and trained workforce that should be installing these projects and maintaining them. 8 months before the Escondido fire, general electricians were pulled off of the maintenance of that project. At the very least, the council can ensure battery energy storage technicians possess the necessary skills and knowledge to keep our neighborhoods safe by requiring energy storage, microgrid training, and certification. Requiring BESS technicians be certified would significantly reduce the risk of installation and maintenance errors. This proactive approach that we're presenting to you today aligns with best practices in risk management, potentially lowering insurance costs and liability exposure for the city and project developers. We stand ready to assist you as your partners in safety. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lauren Cesaris.
Good evening, Mayor White, Deputy Mayor Garcia, and members of the Escondido City Council. My name is Lauren Casares, Policy Advisor at the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, whose mission is to make the San Diego region the best place to live and work. The Chamber represents over 2,200 member businesses and 300,000 jobs regionally. As we shared back in August, we are proud supporters of battery energy storage systems, also referred to as BESS, throughout San Diego County. I am here to ask for your no vote on Urgency Ordinance 2024-12. Battery energy storage systems are vital for achieving Escondido's own climate action goals, keeping the lights on during peak hours and during blackouts. These projects help jurisdictions like yours achieve both environmental and economic goals, in addition to providing energy grid reliability, well-paying construction jobs, significant local property tax revenues, and continued investment in the local community. Modern BESS systems are very safe, often outfitted with state-of-the-art fire suppression systems, including sensor technology, 24/7 monitoring, automatic shutoffs, and temperature controls. We believe resident safety is critical and understand the concerns modern technologies can often raise in communities. That's why we have been supportive of federal guidelines and the 2022 California Fire Code regulations, ensuring that newer BESS systems that are developed in 2024 feature advanced safety protocols and are regularly inspected by experts and fire officials. We are very supportive of bringing forward guidelines and regulations for these BESS projects, just not icing them out, just not a moratorium like this urgency ordinance would be. Considering the positive impacts that BESS can have on communities like yours and the immense amount of misinformation that continues to circulate throughout our county, I hope you will consider voting against this ordinance that could have a significant impact on local supply chains and project costs. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration tonight, and please vote no.
No further public comment on this item.
Hey, Corey, can you come back up here for a second? I have a couple questions for you. First off, thank you for this. Very helpful.
Certainly.
In the letter, and like you said just now, you talk about these BESS projects being built without licensed electricians. So when I got started in the construction industry, I learned very quickly that you can do no job in construction more than $500 without a license in whatever you're trying to do. How is it possible that unlicensed contractors are doing these jobs?
Great question. So it's not that the general contractors are not licensed. It's that the classification of the work is being given to folks who are not state certified electricians. So there's a way for general contractors to bring in a different workforce, especially within the battery energy storage industry, because for very long the concept was that you would incentivize the industry by having it deregulated. And so as we're all seeing, regulations and certain standards of classification and certification do need to be put into place for the precise reasons that we're now here discussing.
Got it. Okay, so there's still a general contractor, but there's no.
It's the subs.
Yeah. Okay. And the next question relating to the fire that took place here, you said something about the maintenance workers were licensed and then weren't. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So these private companies, which are the private developers, will bring in, so there's obviously different phases. Once you have installed the battery energy storage, then there's maintenance that needs to be, regular maintenance that should be happening. So there was the general electricians, state certified general electricians who installed the project and maintained it up until 8 months ago. So we're still waiting for the finalized investigation, but nothing was wrong with that until now. And we can say that the state certified general electricians who were maintaining it were pulled off 8 months ago.
Understood. Okay, thank you. That concludes my questions. Again, I appreciate the letter and
Certainly.
Thank you. I wish we would have opened up this dialogue before the fire took place, before the Isoplex, the goal line project was approved, because I think we could have found a happy medium before a moratorium was totally considered. I want to start out by saying that I don't think any of us up here are just adamantly opposed to battery energy storage systems. Even I recognize that this is a need. If this is the way that the state is going and we have to have climate goals, this is the way to accomplish that. However, it's got to be done, it has to be done the right way. And for us, I think we learned a valuable lesson that even when a small fire breaks out, it has large consequences. In the resolution itself, it said mandatory evacuations resulting from the incident included an area approximately 1 square mile for approximately 48 hours. That was a square mile worth of businesses whose employees couldn't go to work, whose businesses didn't make any money. And I think for some that has dire impacts. So for me, I still support the moratorium temporarily. However, I am going to make an amendment to the resolution itself. This is it's the 18th whereas, and if you're looking at the hard copy agenda, this is on page 67, and it's the second paragraph. It says, whereas, while this interim ordinance is in effect, the city intends to study and consider land use development policies and standards related to best facilities that should be added to the city's general plan and zoning regulations. And I would add, and minimum workforce standards, and develop an emergency response plan. 67. And it's the second paragraph down. And I'll say it one more time. Whereas, while this interim ordinance is in effect, the city intends to study and consider land use development policies and standards related to best facilities that should be added to the city's general plan and zoning regulations, and minimum workforce standards, and develop an emergency response plan. And I think that is probably best done either with some sort of a task force or a working subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee. I would be happy to create that subcommittee before the year's end if we have staff capacity, or maybe right after the new council has taken place. And that's part of my recommendation, is to approve the resolution with that amendment and with the understanding that either a task force or some sort of working group will be put together. And I would invite IBEW and AES and any other stakeholder who wants to participate in that working group to have a seat at the table, and we can all figure this out together. Figure out what works best for the city. So that's my motion. I would ask for a second, and then I'll open it up. Perfect, thank you, and I'll open it up for discussion.
Second on this, right? For the putting this on the agenda. Putting on the agenda.
To be honest with you,
Correct.
I don't remember.
Yeah, correct. I believe it was. So if I might, I agree with everything that was stated, especially what the mayor said as well. And again, this is not a prohibition. It shouldn't be considered a prohibition. It's not an icing of anything. It's a pause. It's a pause because there are too many questions, there are too many concerns, and there have been, in just some very, very few isolated incidences, significant repercussions that have reverberated throughout not only those immediate communities, but throughout San Diego County. So I look at this as an opportunity for this city council, this city, with this moratorium, providing us with the ability to have greater discussion with our neighboring cities and municipalities, with the county in general, with state level experts who can help come in and facilitate these discussions about regulations, about zoning, about guidelines, everything that has been intimated and or mentioned, but not necessarily etched in stone, things that aren't necessarily concrete. And we have a community that has significant worries and concerns about safety. The mayor had mentioned the 1 square mile of people who were shut out of work. That didn't take into consideration all those who were quarantined in the sense that they were told to shelter in place, and the repercussions of schools that said we can't afford that should your zone increase. So schools had to be closed. Students didn't go to classes. Parents who had to take care of their children also couldn't go to work. So it was significant. And if there's a way that within a relatively short period of time, this pause can help shed more light and accelerate the interest of all parties to come to the table and figure out the best way to get this resolved, then that's why I'm all in favor of this moratorium. I think it's pertinent, and I think it's important, and I hope that it can be a catalyst throughout the county.
Yeah, thank you for the information, for the presentation, Veronica. So yeah, I think, my question is, as the mayor's amendment, I support, having workforce standards, the task force. I know that was suggested in one of the letters of different stakeholders and experts. I'd like to see, our fire department get involved in this, which I haven't heard them chime into this conversation. It was a scary experience. Having that fire in Escondido, and I know that there was just a lot of questions and answers, and we'd never experienced it before, and I still am myself learning about BEST systems. So just a question on the moratorium, because I believe we'd probably be the first ones in the region to have one, right?
I don't know, to be
Okay,
honest
I
with
think
you. I know the county considered
we
one
would,
the
okay.
warehouse. Okay, yeah.
So we'd be the first ones. So I'm curious, Veronica, can we go back to the slide that tells you the different times right there? So then would this be saying 45 days, we have a check-in? Is that 35-day check-in going to be a council meeting, like a public meeting?
Thank you for that question. If
it aligns with the date.
if the city, if council directs to prepare a written report, we would be back at council, yes, at that 35-day mark, 10 days prior to.
Okay.
And that has to be a public hearing, by the way.
Okay,
So
it
if you're
does.
going to extend it, you have to actually notice
Okay.
it as a public hearing.
Right, because I think for me, as far as like 45 days does not seem like an unreasonable amount of time. And then I would say that, we put the stakeholder together and we have a plan before that. Maybe that could be the 35-day mark. So I would support it if it was, again, we're going to, us supporting this today would take us to step 1, right? And then to go beyond step 1, that would require a separate action from council, correct?
Step 1 is tonight.
Yeah.
Step 2 is what's going to happen in the meantime. Staff will be charged with the responsibility of generating the 10-day report. We'll have the notice, and then we'll be coming back for, if the council wishes to hear, an extension of the urgency ordinance, and that would be step 3, which would take you 10 months and 15 days out.
So there's potentially here 3 different votes for the 3 different steps, correct?
No, there's really 2 votes. There's tonight, and then there's on the 3rd. Step 3 is the extension. So
45
tonight,
day extension.
Yep, at 45 days. So tonight, you only go 45 days.
Right.
In the meantime, a 10-day report needs to be generated. The next step is the opportunity for the council to decide whether or not it wants to extend that for almost 11 months.
And that's, and if to extend it, and maybe I'm getting too ahead here, but to extend it 10 months, it could be up to?
Maximum, yes, that's a max. So if
there for-
the council decided it was 6 months, it would be that, so.
Okay, so I would support, a 45-day pause. We work with stakeholders, especially those who are experts in this and have offered to help in order to have, stricter, more modern safety protocols, as well as the workforce standards, which I think is very important. And I hope by then we'll have heard what the result is of the investigation for the fire that happened. I don't know if we'll get information by then. So I just think that information is important. So I would support it.
So if I may make one comment about that, the 45-day expiration, I think that would be then coming back to the council at the meeting on November 20th. It would be very aggressive, given our staff resources, to try to do everything we're discussing within 45 days. So I want to be clear that what we're setting up to do is come back to you with the 35-day report. Then you can consider on November 20th whether or not and how long to extend the moratorium up to 10 months and 15 days. And at that point, we'd be prepared to talk more about, given what we learn over the next 35 days as we're preparing the report, and feedback from you on what you would like to see in terms of new regulation, what sort of timeline we would have the resources available to get that done.
And I think when we get to that point where we're considering the 10 months and 15 days, by then we'll have it figured out whether it's what kind of working group it is, whether it's an ad hoc subcommittee, just a task force, a commission, whatever the case may be. And then I think we can set a general goal of when we want that done and for everything to come back to council.
I just wanted to be clear that 45 days is not going to be sufficient time for staff to accomplish what we're talking about setting out to do.
And that 10-day report is kind of an outline of the issues you're going to be looking at, how you're going to go about doing it. It is not the substantive decision-making that's happening in that 10-day report.
One more question, sorry. The pause, that does not impact anything that has already been, is going through the process? Is there any kind of negative impact?
I think Veronica told you that there was at least 2 items that are out, projects that are out there, but it will prohibit the issuance of any permits, any other work authorizations for those projects.
Are any of them within that, like a very short, like a 60-day, 90-day kind of window of when they would be getting permits?
There is one project that is currently submitted and under review, but they wouldn't be issued a permit, most likely due to comments, so
okay,
not impacted directly as of yet.
Okay. Just one thing to lift up is, in the 45 days, I would like to know if there's, engage them in that conversation if possible, so that if there is going to be an impact, that we know about it, because they might not know that we're having this conversation, and so that would be helpful information for me to have.
Just to be clear, you're asking us to reach out to that applicant.
Yes.
And, okay.
So they know that we're, because this potentially impacts their project, and if so, what that would look like.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, for the hard work. I want to echo what has already been said. No one here is against clean energy or this type of work. I'm on the Clean Energy Alliance. I'm actually very much in favor of clean energy, but as what was mentioned, it's not a prohibition. It's just a pause until we get everything written that I think is going to satisfy our concerns. I appreciate the mayor's amendment, but I also would like to add an amendment too. I'm not sure how we can do that, if we would go to a vote and then amend it, or how we would.
We'd have to wait for Councilor Morosco, since he was made the second on the motion, but you can propose it. He would just have to agree to changing it.
Okay. All right.
As
I'll
well
wait
as
for
Mayor
him.
White,
Yeah, I'll wait for him right now. So just to let you know, so the amendment that I would add would be to section 3, I believe it's page 68. I think that would be just so you guys know, it's the second to last paragraph there.
Section 3?
Yes, ma'am. Sure, no, go ahead. You know what, and well, maybe, maybe you should read it, and then I'll read it out loud afterward. Councilman Garcia, do you want to say anything about this
Yeah, do
in
you
the
want to go ahead
meantime?
with your comments?
Thank you very much. And my comments are just basically a couple of, this provides time for us to do our due diligence, which I believe is absolutely necessary. I support the amendment to create a minimum workforce standards. I think that's critical for us in order to be able to do that, to have a workforce or a group or an ad hoc, however it eventually works out to be, with all stakeholders, I think is absolutely critical. So I support with those amendments what is it called? The interim urgency ordinance that's before us now. Thank you.
All right.
I was going to say, he's back.
All right, thank you. So, as I mentioned earlier, I do want to add an amendment as well, and I know you, Councilman Marasco, you seconded what the mayor had said, but the one that I want to add is in section 3. It's page 68 if you want to reference it. But it says, it reads, I should say, no use permit variance building variance. Sorry, let me just find the actual writing. Variance, building permit, business license, or any other entitlement for use shall be approved or issued for the establishment, construction, or operation of a commercial BESS facility for a location or property within the city of Escondido unless a use permit was approved. I'm sorry. So it goes on and reads, and then it says the establishment, construction, or operation of a commercial BESS facility. And I know that there's commercial facilities that that generate their own power. So I want to add an amendment that says no larger than 1 megawatt. And the reason why is because there are commercial buildings that do generate some that I've seen that are not these mega, trailers or anything like that, but generate for themselves. And I wouldn't want to prohibit that. Now, I'm not sure if this is something that the staff needs to look more into in terms of technology, but that's something that I would like to see.
Are you referring to an existing establishment that's just looking to put battery energy storage on their property?
Yes.
That is not, it's not specifically a BESS project?
Yes, but...
So would the moratorium have any effect on that?
If you look at the last sentence of that very same section, as used in the interim ordinance, the term commercial means the use of a BESS facility to provide electricity for third parties for consideration. So does that meet the nature of the facility you're describing?
Well, my concern too is that sometimes I know that commercial buildings, or I'm sorry, people who generate energy will sell it off as well back to SDG&E. So maybe this is something we could look back into for the 45-day and kind of get that tuned out. But I do want to see that. I do want that implemented for anything that's smaller scale, that's less than 1 megawatt.
I think that's the perfect thing that we can handle in the 10-day report, to see if there's a way to carve that out and say it the right way as part of what will be the extended ordinance.
Okay, I just want to ensure that that's still there for smaller.
If that issue can wait until November 20th when you have that opportunity.
Yes, I don't believe there's anything that's pending that would be affected by that anyway.
I think that would be staff's request in order to have a little bit of time to zero in on that. If
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious where you got the 1 megawatt number.
The 1 megawatt number, it's 4 hours of energy typically. I know that's, I think a clean number as well. So yeah, it's,
cover what you're talking about.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to approve the item with the amendment to paragraph 18. It has been seconded. Please open the voting.
And that's yours.
Correct.
Correct. Voting is open. Mayor White, I didn't log your vote. Do you mind just checking real quick?
How about now?
Let's take a look. Motion approved, 5-0. Great.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Item 7, future agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to? No. Okay. Council member subcommittee reports and other reports. Councilmember Martinez. Okay, I'll come back to you. Perfect.
Okay, just real quick, had my final Regional Solid Waste Association meeting. Was held first week in October. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of changes occurring with the board of RISWA. 4 of us, one has already left. He resigned his post as council member, and 3 are either terming out or not running for re-election, and another is on the hot seat as to whether or not he gets reelected or not. So we could have a significant change in our Regional Solid Waste Association board. It's a great group to interact with and to deal with, and more than anything else, you get updates constantly as to what's coming down the pike from the state of California. So very helpful. Fire truck dedication last Saturday was a lot of fun, very interesting. We have 3 new rigs here in the city of Escondido, and they're amazing, they're beautiful. Took, what was it? Was it 12 years? The process, I can't remember exactly what it was, but a long time in coming, but they're fantastic. And some of our other trucks, which have been, the centerpieces for the city of Escondido, are getting long of tooth, like me, and they're getting close to mandatory retirement age. So I don't think we're going to be stopping the pursuit of new fire equipment anytime soon. Also, last Saturday, there was an event held in Escondido, which was a fundraiser and an awareness event for breast cancer and breast cancer survivors called Dink for Pink. It was held at private residence here in Escondido, but it was extremely well organized, well sponsored, well attended, and people there seemed to be having a heck of a lot of fun. The tournament was won by Bob from, what's the name of the restaurant? It just lost me. Over on Orange, Sunrise Kitchen. Sunrise Cafe. Sunnyside Cafe. Bob and Lauren won the tournament. Congratulations to them, and especially to everyone who put in the time, effort, energy, and to volunteer and to help bring that event to fruition. It was a blast. This Saturday, Kit Carson Park Love ESCO cleanup event. You can go online to Love ESCO and get that information for anyone who is interested in volunteering for that. A week from Sunday is the Escondido Street Fair Grand Avenue event, as well as the Rotary Centennial Celebration. And that's it.
Sir?
Yes. Just a couple of things. I had on Friday a meeting with NAREP, the local chapter of the National Association of Hispanic Realtor Professionals. They shared some of the findings and information regarding Hispanic ownership and how that's all growing and impacted our community. We also had a briefing on the animal control contract, the current status on that, and then we had an homeless ad hoc committee meeting today.
Was today?
Yeah.
Yes, homeless subcommittee meeting was today. Last night, I presented the Escondido Union High School District with the Student of the Month Award, and also attended the grand reopening of the El Norte 7-Eleven up there by the Upper Vons, which was actually a blast. They had the Monster Girls out there. They had the DJ, free pizza, free Slurpees, free cookies. It was a blast. Great place to bring kids. Go ahead.
Sounds good. You were first, so I wanted to make sure. Okay. All right. So as always, meeting with constituents on a regular basis. I was also at the Dink for Pink. I think that was such a great event. As somebody who has a loved one that went through something similar recently, I know how inspiring it is to come back from that struggle and to really, be able to celebrate it. The fire engine dedication was great. I think there was a lot of fun as well. I met with a nonprofit that works with at-risk youth. We had a meeting. I'm always looking to support the causes, and we're looking for different ways to continue supporting them. And I think that's it. As always, thank you for the privilege to serving you.
Hey, tomorrow I have an air pollution control district meeting, planning and policy committee meeting, so I'll share more about that. So you may have heard that it's our turn in our region. We're sharing it with Tijuana, so it's like a border binational region. We got the World Design Capital, and so part of that, they're having all kinds of events in the region, and one of them was at the Center for the Arts on Friday, and so I participated in the San Diego Tijuana International Jazz Festival, which was awesome. It was over 4 hours of a concert, so long night. I met with a senior service council. I'm supporting Love Esco. They have a project right now. If any of my colleagues know, this is just public service announcement. Any seniors or anyone with that has disabilities that need support in maintaining their yards, doing like light maintenance. Love Esco has volunteers that want to help our seniors and anyone who has a disability or has a challenge in being able to maintain properties and things like that. So I spoke with the senior service council at the senior center today to share about that. So that's just an open invitation. It's been really hot, so we just got our last batch of cooling towels. We've given thousands of cooling towels away, and they're still available at Education Compact. So grab them before they're gone until next season. And then now with the temperatures cooling off, I'm going to start my community cleanups. You just reminded me with the community cleanup announcement. I've got to schedule those, so I'll probably schedule something in November now that it's starting to cool off. So I take a pause on those cleanups when it gets too hot. I think that's all I have.
May I ask you a question in regards to the air quality control meeting? Could you?
Air pollution control district meeting? Yes.
Can you speak with them as to what your group's position would be on, say, the resultant air quality issues and concerns that occurred with the recent fires? Have you guys had a chance to discuss that?
No, we haven't. We brought it up. We brought it up in a very kind of closing comments that what is the role of APCD during those emergency preparedness and them communicating directly with cities. I did call them when that happened, and I know that this is still kind of a new technology for them. So I will remind them that we want to have proactive communication and any information on stances, what the work of the APCD does in relation to these kind of facilities. So I'll ask that and see what they say. Thank you. Yeah.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Morosco already mentioned the Grand Avenue Festival. I want to plug that event yet again. As the council heard last week, an update on the Grand Avenue Vision Project. That's impacting the Calmia Juniper block of Grand Avenue. However, the Grand Avenue Festival will go on along its entire length from Escondido to Ivy, including the block that's under construction. All the businesses will be open. And so we invite the public to come out, support local businesses. Sunday the 20th from 9 to 5, live bands, food, retail vendors, all sorts of shopping, a beer and wine garden. So please come out and support local businesses, especially during the Grand Avenue Vision Project construction phase.
Politicians shaking hands and kissing babies, all kinds of things there.
All sorts of wonderful things, That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. We out.